About the top 4 offlaners in 7.23e. Number 4. Puck. Ever since 7.23, Puck has felt like an absolute beast of a hero, and I think it's safe to say that the minor nerfs were not nearly enough to stop the hero. Just like before 7.23, Puck is still an excellent laner because he or she is in the upper echelon of heroes when it comes to starting attack damage and also has one of the best attack animations in Dota 2. On top of this, he or she has 2 low cooldown, long-range nukes totaling for almost 600 damage, allowing her or him to consistently push waves and pull the hard camp, secure ranged creep blast hits, and harass his or her opponents in the lane. Puck also has 3.5 seconds of silence, 2 different ways of disjointing auto attacks and spells, and 2 abilities that give her or him ludicrous mobility. Furthermore, Puck has what I'd consider to be in the top 5 talent trees in all of Dota. At level 10, you get to choose between phase shift attacks, which is like getting another level 4 ability at level 10, or 200 cast range, which makes it so that you don't even need a blink dagger to be effective. At level 15, you get to choose between 2.5 free demon edges in damage, or 1 permanent veil of discord in spell damage. Then, at level 20, you get permanent silence. At 25, you get either 6 slotted in the next 5 minutes with the gold talent, or you become a giga carry. Then, at level 30, well, at that point, you're essentially a god. But perhaps the biggest reason that Puck is extremely viable right now is that the Dota map feels larger in general than it has ever before. And that's not because the map size has been literally increased, it's because recently 2 shrines were removed closer to the center of the map, and the outposts were added at the very edge of the map. Therefore, heroes who like to build boots of travel and heroes who have a lot of mobility are more valuable than ever. Of course, Puck fits the bill perfectly for both of these requirements. And, to top it all off, since games are now crawling with seemingly impossible to catch mobile heroes, Puck's Dreamcoil ability and 3.5 seconds of silence is a saving grace in almost every single game. Number 3. Batrider. Batrider is a hero who has a really interesting history in Dota when it comes to nerfs and buffs. For so many years since TI3, Batrider got nerfed over and over and over again, but he's always found his way back into the meta. The reason for that is because the repositioning ability that comes from Flaming Lasso is innately broken. I've heard so many analysts and pro players say that if you want to truly nerf Batrider, then take away Flaming Lasso. With that being said, prior to 7.22, Bat received the polar opposite treatment to Pudge, who at one brief point was actually broken. And Ice Frog, he went straight for the jugular. He nerfed the move speed on Hook, rendering the hero awful for so many patches to come. Then, the Frog buffed every other ability, even giving Hook vastly more pure damage at level 1 than it had before, but Pudge still remained bad because the most broken part about the hero was never the hook damage, it was never the rot, it was never the flesh heap, it was the fact that he could hook people out of position. With Bat, on the other hand, nothing of the sort happened. All of his other abilities got nerfed in almost every patch, but the core mechanics of Lasso remained the same. There hit a point where all of Bat's abilities just felt so atrociously bad, and not only was he awful because he'd never get to the point where he would use Lasso without losing the game, he also just wasn't fun to play. Then in 7.23, Ice Frog gave him the treatment. Flame Break was given increased radius and impact damage, which means now it can be used to break blink daggers. Sticky Napalm cast point was straight up removed, and you don't even need to turn to cast the ability. And now Firefly gives you increased day and night vision. On top of this, the meta is filled with extremely mobile heroes, all of which Bat is adept at catching. And the map is much larger feeling than before, which is perfect if you're a Batrider because the hero loves to build boots of travel, and also he can move around the map quickly with Firefly. Number 2. Venomancer. Unlike Puck, Venomancer's had it pretty good for quite some time now. He was starting to trend as a top pick in the offlane near the end of 7.22. Why was he trending at the end of 7.22? Well, it's because he got buffed for literally 11 patches in a row. His base stats and stat gains were buffed, his talents were buffed and reworked to be better numerous times, and his Plague Wards were buffed so that they had more collision size and attack speed. Poison Nova duration and damage were both buffed, Poison Sting movement speed, slow was increased, Venomous Gale damage was increased. Basically, Ice Frog was screaming at us to please start picking Venomancer. Then in 7.23, in typical Ice Frogian fashion, he subverts all of our expectations and he buffs a hero that was already overpowered, giving him health regen reduction on his Poison Sting ability. This was subsequently nerfed in 7.23c, but of course it wasn't nearly enough. Venomancer is in a place right now where it feels like you'll almost never be not a complete menace to the enemy team. In most games, you'll lane against some tiny Ursa or Faceless Void and completely dumpster them in lane. If your lane miraculously doesn't have a tiny carry in it, then you can always come back by jungling faster than any other hero in Dota by using the Plague Wards. At a certain point, Veno gets items like Pipe of Insight, Spirit Vessel, Crimson Guard, and the like, and then he plants himself anywhere on the map, and the enemy team just can't go there. If you want to kill him, then you're going to have to plow through thousands of effective health points, and you must be willing to take your entire HP pool in damage from his ultimate, Spirit Vessel, and other abilities, so it's almost never going to be worth it to kill a Veno. Having the ability to control an area like this completely by yourself is extremely strong in the current patch. As I mentioned in the Puck clip, there are so many objectives around the map that you need to secure, and they're so far away from each other that it feels very easy to spread yourself too thin. But with a Venomancer, he can control such a large area by himself, it frees up other heroes on your team to go 4-man elsewhere. Number 1. Doom. Unlike Puck or Venomancer, Doom has had a pretty tumultuous path when it comes to getting nerfed and buffed. In 7.20, he was buffed, then in 7.20c, he was nerfed, in 7.20d, he was buffed again, then in 7.21, his Strength Gain and Scorched Earth cooldown were buffed, but his Devour regen was nerfed. In 7.22, Devour was nerfed heavily, then in 7.23, they buffed basically everything about this hero. The creep level limit on Devour was increased, the gold calculation was changed, and the cooldown and duration were both increased. This means that if you put a second value point in it now, you're going to be able to get a centaur creep, but also benefit from the gold bonus quadrupling in value, and then the regen more than doubling in value. This is one of the most value second points in all of Dota 2. But probably the biggest buff to Doom in 7.23 is Scorched Earth. The movement speed was buffed, the damage was buffed, and the duration was buffed. At level 1, this ability does a total 320 damage for 60 mana, while also giving you 12% move speed for 16 seconds. That is an absolutely insane ability at level 1. This ability is so good that in a competitive match, Ramsey skilled it at level 1 and ran a support down from full HP for First Blood. At level 4 in this ability, it does over 1000 damage. So at level 7, between Doom and Scorched Earth, you have 2000 BKB piercing damage that also disables all items and spells on your opponent while allowing you to chase them down with hasted movement speed. And yes, you heard me correctly, I said BKB piercing. I didn't believe it when I first heard it, but a mystery man in Discord tipped me off on this. I tested it, Scorched Earth, for some reason, pierces BKB, which means if somebody gets BKB off and you doom them, you will still be able to kill them solo. On top of all of this, Doom now has a great Aghanim Scepter upgrade. It takes Infernal Blade, makes it a nearly 2-second stun, adds 2 seconds to the duration of Infernal Blade, and makes it break passives. The build that people are going on Doom currently is 2 points in Devour, max Scorched Earth, then start maxing Infernal Blade once Scorched Earth is maxed out. People go phase into Drums to match up with the Scorched Earth level 4 in Doom timing, then build into either BKB or typical offlaner aura items such as Pipe, Vlad's, Crimson Guard. Then, after a couple of decently big items, eventually you build into a late game Ags, which can later be consumed to facilitate some luxury item that you will of course be able to afford because of all the gold that Devour gives you.